One of the characters that we've interacted with in our class a good bit through his written material is Bart Ehrman. Do you know?
I do.
Would you,
My dear friend Bart.
Yeah, would you would you give us sort of your assessment? I'll tell you this story. I was in a meeting with the dean of St. John's Law School last week in New York. And I thought I was in there to talk about law. And he, within 10 minutes, said, okay, talk to me about Bart Ehrman. Hey, the dean is a devout Catholic. He said that he had read a couple of Bart's popular works and had really been disturbed by them and wanted to know my thoughts. Bart Ehrman gets out there. A lot of people read his stuff. What can you tell us? Well, give us Bart Ehrman in a nutshell.
Well, you must understand that in addition to evangelical organizations like the Evangelical Theological Society, there are some professional societies, so-called, of biblical scholars, like Society of Biblical Literature, Society of New Testament Studies, and so on. And in those sorts of circles, then you get evangelicals and Catholics and liberals and neo-Bartians and all the rest. They're all together in these so-called professional societies. So along the line, therefore, eventually I get to meet everybody who's writing in the field. So it's in that context that I've got to know Bart. He's not a bosom buddy, but our paths have crossed. And I said something in print 6 months ago or so that he caught, and he wanted to find out more about the sources, so he emailed me and I answered him and so on. So that sort of thing happens. And then I preached in the universities in the Carolinas too, because the student groups sometimes ask me to do so. So you've got to understand there's a matrix in which we get to know him. Bart went to Moody, then he went to Wheaton, and then he went to Princeton in that sequence. And by the time he got to Princeton, he was beginning to lose his faith. He felt that the foundations that had been given him in the previous two schools couldn't stand up to the rigor of the skepticism that he was being fed at Princeton. And he not only lost his faith, but in time he gloried in his loss. In other words, he felt that the faith that he had was just plain wrong. It was misguided. And so as sometimes happens when people have that pilgrimage, they do a pendulum swing. I mean, I can introduce you to all kinds of old-fashioned liberals who have been liberals all their lives, and there's not an edge to them. I mean, I think that they're wrong, but they're not mean about it. And you can have serious conversations with them, and some of them get converted in due course. I remember when I was studying under somebody at Cambridge, when I was doing doctoral studies, a long time ago. This fellow was streets ahead of me intellectually at that point and was raising all kinds of difficult questions. But he wasn't doing so with malice. It was the whole frame of reference in which he came. And I was struggling to catch up and answer questions. And I wrote to my parents, who were godly folk. Dad was a pastor and so on, but had no heritage of scholarship or advanced training or anything like that. I wrote to them about these challenges I was facing. And my mother wrote back, "We're praying that your supervisor will get converted, dear," which sort of put it at a sort of fundamental level that makes important things too. You know, I couldn't help but smiling when I saw that. And of course, as the years go by, you learn more and you can figure out how to answer a lot of these things. Well, Bart comes from not a traditional evangelical background, liberal background, but a traditional evangelical background, and has done a pendulum swing. So that he openly says, he openly avows, he openly has as his goal the dismantling of the faith of the hundreds of young students who take his courses in the Carolinas. And he delights to do it. From his point of view, he is enlightening them. He's teaching them a better way. He's destroying a faith that has no credibility. And there is, you can tell in his writings, a kind of cheerful glee at destroying the faith of young people. And so he is capable of the most advanced, technical, careful, probing scholarship, but he's also capable of the kind of apologetics of liberalism, apologetics for liberalism, that is clever rhetorically and manipulative, but it's not really good scholarship. It's pretty sloppy stuff. And a lot of what he says, he's merely packaging in new, fresh, inviting, exciting ways, stuff that has been debated in the church for a century and a half or so, where there are really a lot of good answers that are already given. But he scores points, and he's loved on the left, and he's sometimes hated. He shouldn't be hated. He should be pitied on the right, because whenever I think of Bart Ehrman, I think of one particular biblical text. For those who destroy the faith of one of these little ones, it would be better for them that a millstone be hung around his neck and that he be thrown into the deepest sea. I feel sorry for Bart Ehrman. He will answer to God. I pray that the Lord will have mercy on him before it's too late.
Amen.